Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. I believe we will start now as the time is already there. Well, the ones who are late, we will be late. Right. My name is Minjutas Latauskas. I'm head of product development, and I will be reading this whole webinar about the training and education based on business simulation, and specifically what we have in store for you. As you already know, after three hours, we'll be having also a game, specifically online, based on Simformer, where you can actually experience the whole system. So please type in 1 if you hear me properly, if the sound quality is okay for you and you can hear me. All right, that's good. All right then. Okay, so that's good. Perfect. Okay. Right. I have a question for the attendees. Please type in if you're actually in the education, meaning academia, and please type 2 if you're more of a business type of educator. So I would just will know where you are, from which part you are, from which part of the business. Okay. Okay, more of educators. Good. Then let's move on. First of all, probably as some of you have already received the email, I usually like these two definitions, basically teaching and learning, and the difference between these. As we will carry on through the seminar, you will see why I'm so picky at this point, and I think some of you probably already have a clue why is going in this direction. You know, Confucius once said, I see, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So naturally, through the process of teaching or education, usually we transfer the knowledge to the students. And I think for most of you, this is quite understandable and quite, well, knowledgeable how it happens. But the question is, most of the times, is that environment we're creating as educators for the students is good for learning? Because exactly where learning is the thing when people actually learn the most. The reason I'm asking is that right now for as online solutions, we have a very huge amount of MOOCs. And basically, I think that this is, personally, I think that these are one of the best solutions for storing, sharing knowledge and studying, teaching. But at the same time, as practice shows and statistics shows, that this is quite a problematic topic because they are focused only on theoretical transfer of the knowledge, but hardly on developing any practical skills. Now, why am I asking about practical skills? If we go into the statistics, as I mentioned, about market analysis, and especially asking employers, are they satisfied with their students, basically business school alumni, around 50% and more will actually say no. Both in US and UK, there are major employers questions. So, are you happy with the things you receive from business schools? And their answers mostly are no. So naturally, the problem is mostly in the fact that they lack practical skills, not only soft skills. This is probably due to the more of a change in generations and technological advancement, but the practical skill orientation development is lacking. Naturally, in Simformer, we thought, okay, so what can we do? Because we have one solution already, so we thought, how can we combine with something that is already available to create something new? Truth is, we thought, okay, so we do have a certain solution. Probably most of you already know that this cone of learning is there and pretty available for anyone and actually pretty old. But the truth behind it is that it's still there, is still available, and very, very actual, I could say. If we go into traditional learning and teaching methods, as shown before, as actually for simply transferring the knowledge, then we're up there in lecturing, reading, audio and video demonstration and discussions. But if we really want to create an environment where people would actually do something, get interactive environment, and naturally see the results of their actions, now we're speaking about simulations and gamification overall. So naturally, these exactly when we practice doing, and we also we share knowledge. This is when it happens, when we can actually interact the student to start giving questions. And then, from my experience, is exactly when it happens when you don't just teach, you become a helper, an advisor, and most of the time you're asked a lot of questions and not just speak all the time. So this is, I say that's a very big progress. So in the process, I see someone else enjoying this. That's great. So in the process, in Simformer, we thought, okay, so this is what we know. And let's move on to the fact that what we know about gamification overall. Now, the topic as it is not new, right? I mean, games, probably we know the games as far as humanity is alive, we've been probably playing games. And if we see other species, we see that the gaming and playing is always there, training, getting prepared. Now, if we go further on through the process of Homo sapiens developing, and right now, speaking about 20th and 21st century, I could say that in gamification, we could speak about three overall gamified realities, or three categories, how games are used in general. Reality as a game. So basically, what we do is you form organizations or businesses as a game. So you use game mechanics to create a certain quest and reward system for the jobs done. Nothing smart, but basically that's still business. Gamification overall, that's taking a standard business and involving certain gamification elements or game mechanics to get people or employees more involved, for them to get more interested in the activities and certain activities and getting better results. And last but not least, now these are simulated realities. Well, probably the first thing that comes to mind is flight simulators. Later on, naturally, the military started using them because they're using high-tech technology, which definitely needs to be, well, the pilots need to get certain basic skill sets to actually not to crash the machinery, which is actually pretty expensive. So naturally, we work with that in simulations. And later on, what we can see is that in simulations are also used now for medicine. And business simulation is one of the topics that's pretty old, and but not developed fully as we have seen in our practice. So what we also discovered in Simformer that we will have these four elements we actually would like to combine. We have the knowledge in LMS. Right? A lot of LMS systems are there available, a lot of universities, a lot of MOOCs, lots of information. We do have our simulation, and we've been working with it for over 8 years. And I will tell you about it a little bit later on. We also thought, how about we give opportunity for developers to develop their own specific scenarios, because usually business simulations are pretty limited. And that's because they're either focused on a very specific activity, or only one business process or one specific product. So if you want to have something more close to the economy, that's more of a problem. Yeah, I believe that will be possible. Okay, good luck. And naturally, as products are developed and certain courses are developed, naturally we thought, how about we create a marketplace for people to go in, to develop their own courses and share with others. So share with the world. That's exactly what we thought of doing. And I will show you in this seminar what we did and how we used that to develop courses, both for academics and for business. So I believe this will be LMS. LMS, this is Learning Management System. These are used by I think most of the, for most of these universities probably are having their own. So Moodle probably is one of the best known at the moment. And SBS, that's I will tell you about that. That's a very good question. And Simformer business simulation, that's exactly what I have in mind specifically. Now, initially it was a game, but as a result, last year, at the beginning of last year, we thought that this game can actually be used pretty well for education because the game itself is intellectual and very challenging. Now, as already mentioned, the business simulations are usually pretty narrow, or have scenarios and predetermined line of development. So, one question: how many of you have used business simulations over the practice of your teaching? Could you type in one or any kind of number? Just let me know. Okay. Well, thing is, what a business simulation is a turn-based game, or usually these are turn-based games, where you have business decisions to make, and you have limited amount of time to make certain decisions. And every turn you see the results, you analyze the data you receive, and then later on make new decisions, and thus develop the business. As I mentioned, the problem is with traditional business simulations that usually you either manufacture only shoes, you have a limited amount of choices. Usually you go over traditional and standard business decision sets. But in the Simformer, developing this business simulation, or rather saying business simulation environment, we thought of creating an environment for a lot of people to be available for a lot of people that are online. So by 24/7, we mean that it is always available for all the players all over the globe. Meaning, we create an environment where virtual economy is created. What we give for players is opportunity to make decisions, and they trade in virtual goods. But decisions are made not by a certain algorithm or computers, but mostly by players, which means there's a natural fluctuations appear because, well, unpredictability, which is very hard to program in any kind of algorithm, it is there. It is available for them to use. Well, how do we do that? Well, we have over 25 products, 25 industries, sorry, over 200 different products, which means these industries are interconnected, creating machineries, both for creating machines, parts, starting from raw materials, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. So this is as a peer-to-peer system. You either start to work with a team or alone, and there are a lot of possibilities at this point to develop your own kind of business. Meaning, you can create your own model, you model your own business the way you want it, or you want to experiment. As we have over 33 countries and over 300 cities, so there's a lot of different geography, and naturally we try to use as much as real data as possible, and to try to get as close to reality, right? That's the purpose of every simulation. But naturally, in this kind of environment, when everything is interconnected, there's a lot of communication between players and connections. Some engage in certain, business wars. Some become part of the whole group where they trade with each other and strengthen each other. And naturally, they enter foreign markets and fight for those markets. As a result, I will show you how specifically the creation of the value chain happens, as later on the game we will be playing will be about managing motorcycle factory. So I will give you an example specifically about motorcycle factory. As lower, you can see, one second. Okay, so as you can see, we start with raw materials. There's oil, there's metal, a lot of things. Later on, there's refining the materials and making them into sub-materials for later on to be developed into parts, specifically tires, steel, engines, and so on and so forth. Naturally, there's the assembly and then the sales of the final product. But this is not the whole thing, because we don't just deal in final or selling just the product, we also can create services. So these 200 plus means that these are both products that can be sold or services can be provided by using some of the materials that can be produced and thus naturally used as consumables. So there's a lot of variety of things can be done. So there's also product cycles and a possibility to explore and to see how the whole business logic works. So naturally, in the process, as players or students, they start to work and play and develop their businesses, they start to develop and find out the environment as it is available for them. Naturally, there's a question, what happens and what is available for them. Now, specifically what they start with is opening and closing their subsidiaries. Naturally, they make decisions. They manage HR, they manage equipment, supply management is their role, so production, sales, marketing. And in marketing, we mean all 4P or even more, because one thing is when you're doing wholesale and a lot of different thing when you're actually doing retail, and both are available. And the difference is that in wholesale, you're dealing and you're selling to the other players. So naturally, this is also quite a good opportunity to develop your business as well. Naturally, these overall are covered by, basically we cover all key businesses and processes and functions. So as you can see, as you can find these in generally in every business, so you can find these here as well. What we do, why we do that. Just to be more specific, I will show you just the environment, how it looks like, right? So this is what you will see later on during the game, some of you who will be participating. So this is the environment they usually use. As you can see here, these are the products. Specifically, this is the shop. Okay. So as you can see, this is a shop. There's a lot of information. There's a purchase volume, sales volume, data information if you click on the motorcycle or tires. Also in stock, how much you have to sell, quality, the brand, the purchasing price, sales price. As you can see, you can input the price, market share, and also see the average. So at the same time, you can see everything here when you're deciding about your pricing. So this is a lot of detail that is available, but don't worry. Initially, some people say that this is quite, okay, maybe slightly a little bit too much initially when you're dealing with this kind of data, but don't worry, it can be scaled down as well. So you can actually focus only one business operation and not all of them at the same time if you don't really want to scare your students, depending on their age and abilities. In the process, as I mentioned already, so this is actually a selecting supplier list. There are two types of suppliers you will be finding in the simulation. The independent ones, and these with the globe, these are computer generated. So one way or the other, we can affect the virtual economy and try to balance or disbalance, depending on the purposes, and to see how the market will react, how the players will react. At the same time, you can also see other real players inside sharing, selling their production, a certain quality, and choosing certain pricing strategies. So well, there's also a possibility to actually contact these guys and make a deal on better price. So this is also possible. I mean, communication there is there as well, and we can be used. So, it's really up to you what kind of methodologies you use to try to get a better deal. Right, and this is actually the supply list. So to be more specific, this is the environment you can be using. All right, zero-sum game. Could you be a little bit more specific? All right, Daryl, could you be more specific on your question? Right, so this is, as I mentioned already, this is how you can manage your supplies, right? As you before saw, the possibility to actually use these and make orders. So then later on you have to watch these. Now, this is one very important moment. As people play this game, yes, yes, that is true. Thing is, there's a no, this is mostly actually everything ends up in the consumer market, and consumer market is limited. So specifically, when you're fighting for the consumer, there can be, oh, well, you can share the market, but if there would be more activity from you, so your competitors will be losing share of the market. So we try to be, this is not just a gain-gain situation, right? Unless you move on to a different market or different product, but that's one of the solutions. But this is, yeah, so this is, at this game, I could say that this is zero-sum game in this case. So, yes, we do. We try to use as much as possible, but in some cases it is possible, some cases not. Sometimes we try to use as much as possible. Later on, we try to use open data project. We try to use, well, plan to work with open data project. And this, in this case, this is where we can take it. That's an European Union project where institutions actually give their macroeconomic data for the consumers that can be accessed openly. So basically what we do, we connect into the streaming and we get the data, so we can use that. And but that's government institutions specifically. If we're talking about open data, so that's yeah, so that's, I mean, this is as real as it gets, because that's the statistics, that's government statistics. So they gather the whole thing and then they just pass it out for anyone to use. So let's move on to the store management. Now, as I mentioned, I have a proposition. Let's keep the questions for the end part, all right? So because we don't have that much time, and I would like I still have a lot of things to tell about you, all right? So, as I mentioned, we have also personnel management. That in this screen, this is exactly when you see how the personnel management looks like, because this is the amount of employees. So basically, you hire or fire people. You manage their salaries, and this also has a certain fallout. You see how that affects their qualification and what are the city averages and a certain qualification already required by certain technologies. So this is also one of the things you have to do. Also, this is a production. So basically you can also see the output. So that's how much you can produce, a certain factory of yours can produce, how much you have in stock, how quality changes over your actions. Also, the game gives you hints how something should be done or done differently in order to gain higher quality. Now, naturally, you can also see orders and also see available production for selling, and so on, the prices, politics of the sales policies, also maximum values is the one order, how big one order can be, and so on and so forth. So a lot of possibilities, not only to manage the production, but sales as well. Naturally, we have a lot of information, a huge amount of information. Financial reports, marketing, personnel, suppliers and logistics, market leaders, macroeconomics. In the processes of decision making, you will find yourself seeing a lot of information you will require. And that is essential when you're making decisions. And everything that is available already in the game, in the simulation, and you can take that data. As experience shows, if you don't use that data, your decisions usually are quite, well, not that good. Rather, you're not basing them based on data. So naturally, what we teach students and players to make decisions properly. Specifically, now, also, there's one essential thing. As I mentioned, as every business simulation, so ours is not different. Ours is turn-based, but we have two type of turn-based servers specifically. Either if it's SBS Classic, so we have daily turns. We have one day to make all the decisions, to make your actions, to implement those actions, and next day you will see the result of 1 week. So 1 day equals 1 week. Now, if we need something a little bit more intensive and faster, then we have the SBS fast, where turns are made once per hour. And that's exactly where we will be playing today later on. Now, question is, how is the decision making done, or how the whole process can be done? Sorry. Okay, so the decision-making process is the one that is the most important, and in the process of learning or testing, we can actually see how people think. Technically, you give a task to your students. What they have to do is to analyze the situation, the market, the technology, how the whole thing is done. They make their decisions and actions, and then we move on to a certain evaluation of those actions. As students move on after a turn and see the results, we can also then evaluate the results. And naturally, the process of decision making makes a cycle. So you have to analyze the results you received, make certain actions and decisions, see the results after the turn is over, and with these results you can actually see, did or did not your solutions or things you were looking for, did they pay it up? So a certain risk, is it there or not? In the process, what we created is not just a simulation, but actually a simulation environment, so business simulation environment, as you can see, with a large information, a lot of data, a lot of countries, opportunities to create a lot of business structures. We can see that people can connect, and in this case not just people but specifically educators, can create a certain opportunity for their students to create their own simulations, in a big simulations, their own scenarios. Not only starting positions, starting conditions for all the groups, but in the process they can actually affect their work and their business, the development of virtual business. Specifically, I will tell you how it was done with Vilnius University. In Lithuania, Vilnius University is the oldest university we have. As you can see, it's from 16th century, pretty old, I'd say. What we did for them, Dalius Serafinas is one of the partners we have. He teaches quality management. That's his specialty. And we had a talk with Dalius, and he said, I have a problem. I have to teach a subject that is pretty big and complicated. You need a certain experience in business to understand how it works, because you have to see the business systematically. And while students are facing only theoretical knowledge, there's a very big question. So how will they connect that all theory, all those pieces of theory, into one big thing, how business looks like? And usually, as a lot of students, they finish studies and then go to real business and start doing business or working companies, they see that sometimes theory and practice, once again, have a certain gap between it. So naturally, with lack of developing practical skills, they're slightly in shock. At the same time, when people study quality management, their knowledge mostly is just theoretical. And Dalius said, I want them to understand, not just learn, but comprehend how the whole thing works. Well, I said, okay, let's do it. I was in the head also of this pilot project, and to see how can you use the environment in this business simulation, and to see how we can use it and what kind of results we can get. I said, okay, so they need certain practical, let's say even if it's virtual environment, certain practical experience, right? They have to understand how the whole thing works. We have two ways of doing this. We can throw students gradually into simulation, or we can throw them into the whole thing, creating sink or swim situation, and then seeing how well they can do, how well and fast they will learn. And that's exactly what we decided to do. Give them opportunity to develop their virtual business, gain certain knowledge and skills, then in the process, invite real businessmen to evaluate their progress. Specifically, what we did, we took theory, cases, and seminars from Dallas experience, and I believe that majority of the academics would say that, okay, we know that, we do that, and it's a traditional thing. But we said, okay, so how about we throw them into virtual economy as mentioned, give them opportunity to develop their virtual business, and then connect virtual business with real business, meaning we invite real businessmen to act as investors and see how well students can present their business and defend their strategies, decisions, and growth, and what kind of visions they have for the investors, right? As a result, what we wanted to receive is a system comprehensive approach. We wanted for students to see business as a system, as a whole, one big organism. Also to develop their analytical skills and decision making as well, because usually that's one of the things that businessmen find students lacking. As a process, we had 60 students, two groups of 30 each. All these students managed 22 virtual companies, so 2 of 3 students managing one company. In the end, 5 went bankrupt, but they didn't leave the game. Even if they went bankrupt, they came back and started anew and managed to get profitable. So overall, out of 22 companies, 20 managed in the end to become profitable. 3 out of them became billionaires, and I could say probably multi-billionaires overall. We started in the beginning of March. In April, we had real business meeting the virtual. So that's exactly when the investment meeting actually happened, and the presentations of virtual business happened, and when students can actually show their progress and strategies. And after 1 month, one more month, that when Dalus was using the cases, the virtual business cases of the students to teach theory. That's exactly when theory was connected to virtual business. So students in this case had to explain or understand what kind of things happened in their virtual business and how they optimized their business. Because in the process, Dalus explained them what exactly they did. So that's the connection where it happened. As a result, you can see here a list of student companies with certain numbers. So I just wanted to show you that exactly when students naturally start to analyze the data, they get quite good results because they make, though they're not harsh in their decision making to a certain extent, but they make logical decisions and they analyze the data, they make smart decisions. And that's exactly what brings them up into the whole structure. So you see, as the assets, that's the result that actually they managed to get at the end of the training. Just to show you, just to tell you how that's different, well, they started with 10 million, right? So imagine they started with 10 million and managed to get into specifically over 286 billion. So I'd say that's quite something. And these although there were not that many of these high performers. Overall, only 3 companies. So I could say about 9 out of 60 students became something like that. Generally speaking, I could say that 30% actually after the exams, because Dallas changed the exams a bit, he said, okay, we'll do it a little bit differently. Tell me how you manage your quality management in your virtual business. That's it. So the idea was, if they understood everything, they will be able to explain that with their own words. And Alice said, around 35% actually did that quite successfully. Some used their keywords, some didn't, but they understood the core essence about his subject. And 35 were so-so. But he said that's, in his case, that was very big progress. Also, the students did enjoy the whole thing, really. I mean, not that only they understood that quality management is not only good shoes, but the whole business and how it works in the business, there was a lot of good feedback. Because essentially they said, okay, now I know how business works, that it's not some rocket science, not something mystical, but actually something achievable if you know what to do. But basically, if you gather enough information and you can make decisions, the right decisions, you receive a positive result, which in this case is very important. Also, I wanted to show you a feedback from one student, and that's Dovydas, and that's specifically what he developed. So he said, well, okay, you know the right, the Maslow pyramid, right, of the needs. So you know that, okay? So I said, okay, I want to develop my own pyramid the way what I did in ASBS and how the whole thing, how my needs were formed. And it was very interesting. Partially it's a fun way of showing this, but at the same time, it was very interesting to see that guy uses the things he learned. And at the end of the course, he said, now I understand what I was taught in other subjects and why these subjects are important. So I think that in this case, that sums up why for students it is important, because they understand, they start using things they were taught, not only in quality management, but overall. And also, there was feedback from the teacher. So Dr. Dalus said, okay, so as you can see, I will not read those through, so you can take a look at them yourselves. But generally speaking, what he was fascinated, saying, okay, so this is something special, because we take theory, there's something in the middle, this virtual business, we transfer the knowledge into a certain set of skills, and then we travel it to the real business. So there's this transition that usually is lacking in most of the teaching education. We're developing skills. It's quite a problem. And on the other hand, in business, exactly, decision making is highly important. That is the core and main essence to understand how everything works. But to make decision, you need certain knowledge. So naturally, the question is how we take that theoretical knowledge and create a certain practical experience. Actually, just to support one more thing is that when people, there were a lot of researches done, when people actually compared experience gain in real business and real environment, not only business, but overall, in real environment and virtual environments, in the end, many professionals actually put up an equality mark. Basically, experience in a virtual environment, if that virtual environment is copies the reality, as basically can be seen as real. So we can see how it works in flight simulators and medical simulators where they make operations, and naturally business simulators as well, because decision making is the core thing. So and our next step with Dalus is develop also additional courses, but also with additional universities, actually to create one simulation where students create their own business in that virtual simulation, and that one business, that one virtual company and its practice and its decisions are used to teach not one but two, three, or four, or even more subjects. So this is cross-subject training and teaching in this case. So that's one of the that's next thing we're planning to do. However, I asked you if there are real business trainers, because we don't really just have well, academical experience with this in this case, but also business experience. We went to Romania, to Unicredit Bank, to head office, to make a course. Actually, there was a teaching course for 2 days, because well, regional top managers were invited, and their managers said, okay, well, there were actually two groups, 12 and 12. Some were from corporate client, working with corporate clients, some were working with the retail. The main things that both of their decision makers, they said, okay, both of their sorry, both of their management groups said, we want to check certain things. One is to search and to see how well they can work in teams, and two is to find out how well they can manage single-mindedly, alone, basically, to see how well they think strategically, how well they analyze the data, given a very short amount of time and giving a very limited amount of time to make decisions. So we had 6 hours of non-stop game, making turns every hour. Naturally, we organized two groups, same game, but playing it a little bit different setup, individual and a team. As a result, what happened? We had a very, very intensive game. Corporation in distress is basically the situation where you have to manage a company that's already is challenged and has certain difficulties. So we have to manage the business because you have retail stores, you have a factory, and also a restaurant, right? And in some of these subsidiaries, there are good decisions made and some not. So you have to manage all the operational tasks. In the process, in the middle of game, almost the middle of the game, you receive game rules, specific tasks. You have to manage those tasks, and you have to manage your business as well in the process. And as you make actions, you also get results of your actions and have to take these into consideration. Also take in new information, analyze it, and make new decisions. So naturally, they had more than half an hour getting new information, making analysis, and then making decision and executing those decisions. Right? So naturally, you could say there was no time to eat, but there were coffee breaks for about 15 minutes, so a little bit of food there as well. But the interesting part was that when we had at 1 hour, we had food break, and they said, we don't need food, give us decisions, give us numbers. We want to see the results. And we said, okay, here are numbers, but just go and eat as well. Okay, we don't want you to starve. So they got naturally hooked up a lot. In the process of the game, as naturally there are two different setups, different things were developed. Individual setup meant that they had to develop their analytical skills, show their skills, and analyze a lot of information, huge amount of information, in very limited time, and to think strategically, because they didn't have enough time to make all the operations. They had to choose what is best for the business and what is not. And naturally activity, but as I mentioned, the limited amount of time, so that was in the last case. They had to think first of all and then act. In team setup, the situation is a little bit easier because you can divide tasks. But at the same time, it was very interesting to see how they manage to work in teams, how natural leaders arise, and how they manage to divide and make decisions, to divide their tasks and make decisions. So naturally, teamwork, leadership, and activity, that what we were seeing, experiencing, and analyzing, and also making reports about the progress of the groups. Here, you can see the results of the team setup game. The interesting part is that during the majority of the time, as the game developed, it was pretty close call. And as you can see, at the end of the turn, when participants had developed certain knowledge already about the interface of the game, the environment, when they could make decisions, and they understood how the whole thing works, and they're already prepared for that, they made quite a big jump. However, the interesting part is that, statistically, a team with weaker members, or some of weaker members, actually managed to win. So you could say that even if you have weaker members, but they work better as a team, they have better results. So in the end, it was a pretty close call. From the start of the 2 millions, they managed to go to over 200 million, which is, I'd say, quite impressive. And it was a really intensive game for them. A lot of decision making, pretty fast. Naturally, we got a lot of good feedback from them. In the NPS score, we were evaluated through that technique. and 70% of the participants said that they would actively recommend. So basically, which means there were no negative feedback at all. Most of them said this is a good one. Now this is needed, we like it, and they would recommend for anyone who would be actually trying to compete in this game. And 60, that would be 70% actually would be recommending us as game moderators, so one of these. And also 65 of them would recommend the training itself to challenge yourself both professionally and, as they say, as both as a person, as a human, and as a manager. So in this case, I'd say mission accomplished. As a result, we come back to these four main elements, right? So we have courses, we have experience in business, in academic environment, and as we can see, we have one final product developed for anyone that can use and test themselves. Experiencing practically and implementing these kind of projects and simulations with people live on site, we see their feedback, and thus we in the process develop certain products, a group of products. Corporation in distress, that's exactly what we did in UniCredit, and course of quality management that is coming up this month from Dalus, together with Dalus, that will be available online for anyone that will be willing to give it a try. The essential part, that is exactly the end thing when we combine all these four elements. Now, LMS, SBS, developer tools, and a marketplace. That's exactly what we get. Naturally, question is how we develop that, right? Specifically, not only how we use the simulation, but specifically how we use the platform to develop this final product, to combine all these four elements. As mentioned before, we have an LMS. We use Moodle. It is the most popular LMS at the moment. Most of you use it. And naturally, it's what we do, we combine the LMS with developer tools and Simformer business simulation. So what we do use, with the help of developer tools, we create a certain scenario or certain given starting positions or challenges to meet theoretical knowledge that can be found in LMS. So what we do, we give practical tasks to do in virtual environment, and these tasks are directly connected with the theory. So what we do connection. Naturally, for the environment, as you know, is pretty big and huge and systematical. So we want it to be as real as it gets. Means we create a certain market economy. So this is not just one or narrow situation where students have to manage or just understand how the algorithm of the program works. No, they're dealing with other players. They're dealing with natural market economies, specifically virtual market economies, that are created by other participants, not only in their groups, but also somewhere out there in the world, on the globe. So this specifically creates real, live, dynamic environment. That is quite challenging, as most of the students noticed, that old-timers that are already in this environment, they fight quite hard. So competition is fierce. And naturally, as we create a final product with certain tasks that have to be completed and thus theory that is there for students to learn, we get a final product that is available in Simformer marketplace. So specifically, what we can do is we can create a final product. With the developer tools, specifically, developer tools give you opportunity to manage your participants, to manage the student groups. You can also develop your simulation, so you can prepare your simulation setup. You can set it up environments, tasks, challenges, what kind of conditions, from who to buy to who to sell, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of possibilities to create the environment. So you can actually, in this situation, use both traditional methods that can be out of simulation, especially if these are groups of students and they're developing their teamwork, right? And this is not in simulation, this is out of simulation. The teamwork happens between them in reality. Now, what you give in the simulation is the task and environment to actually do and finish their tasks, to manage their tasks. As a result, the developer tools also give you a possibility to monitor the activity of the participants. So either these are students or business trainees, or even if you use it for HR to recruitment process to find out those who are actually good and are worth recruiting or not, you can use that as well. So in this case, with the help of the developer tools. As a process, we create a certain developer tools in the developer tools a simulation setup. In the simulation setup specifically, as I mentioned, it's a starting setup, global setup, meaning you can actually choose what kind of environment, countries are allowed for students to go in. Well, 33 countries, a lot of environments, so I can actually narrow it down or not. You can actually also limit interaction of the participants as well with the outside world. And naturally, you can actually focus only on setup of goods and suppliers. So basically, you can focus on one specific activity or expand it. So really up to you. And as a result, you already know the whole process, the cycle of decision making. But once again, you have two ways, or actually two moments, where you can make decision, where you can actually evaluate the decision making made. So you can see what kind of actions were made after the analysis, after receiving the task and making analysis, both of the task, the information or the knowledge and theory given, and the environment. So, and thus you can see there is the decisions, how those were made, and afterwards you see the result. So basically you can analyze both inside decision making, and then you can see how well that decision making was aimed at the environment, and well, were those guesses and those decisions correct or not. And naturally, as students develop the virtual business, you can see how they do, and it's up to you how much you want to get involved. But usually if students see red numbers and they don't see profit, usually come to you running saying, oh, come on, help us, now what do we do? So I've seen more than a couple of going bankrupt, so that's a given. They come running to you. Okay, thus what we can do and how we can use this environment, both for online or on-site training, business games specifically for a short amount of time, a long amount of time, both for educational courses, professional orientation, to find out for your students or future students, for them to understand how business works. So they can afterwards think, all right, I can do this or that, I'm not good at this and that, or marketing is not my thing, or production is not my thing, but service thing is the thing I like, I'm good at that. So in this case, we can naturally see what kind of business processes are good for them, and thus these students can naturally choose what kind of things they want to do. So that's that professional orientation, and I believe that's very useful and very important topic even lately. Personnel assessment. Yes, those who work with personnel, you can throw into the same environment with the same starting conditions, and your future recruitees go into that environment, they have to show their performance. So if they understand and they're competent in certain fields like retail trade, production, wholesale trade, and so on and so forth, you will see that. Because if they know that, if they have practical skills, they will be easily applying them in this environment, and they naturally will have good results. I've seen that people doing this, and this is really working. It really works. And you can organize championships and Olympics. So basically, you can organize events, big events, with the help of Simformer business simulation. Naturally, now you know a little bit more about Simformer, now the whole structure, or the whole platform. One of the reasons why we're developing this. All right, good luck. All right, now naturally, why are we developing this? So probably you remember my question about the education and learning definitions, right? And also about the MOOCs and them being rather theoretical but not practical skill developing. What we want to do is we create an environment, not only just want to do, we already did that. Actually, we already have this environment in Simformer, both for business, universities, and private clients to meet in. So we transfer knowledge, both from business, practical knowledge, from universities, theoretical knowledge, for both private clients, business clients, and universities, not only share but learn and develop. Specifically, we can also want teachers and professors to give their guidance. In Simformer, what we can do, we create specifically products. We think and we believe that there are a lot of people with a lot of knowledge, but they are not given opportunity to share that knowledge with others globally. So what we wanted to do and what we still want to do and we aspire to do is create this environment for people to use and give that knowledge to others. Naturally, question is, and probably most of you, those who are developing courses, will ask, so okay, what's in it for me? I mean, this is quite natural, right? I will see it very simply. Authors and the trainers, or those who will be using those courses from the authors, will be given 50%. And 50% when we'll go to Simformer to develop the platform later on forward. So in this case, we're splitting it apart, so it's 50-50. Well, some actually say, some of our partners say this is quite a lot, but that's exactly what we want. We want to give opportunity for people who have knowledge to also to earn a certain amount of money that they could actually develop, grow, and share their knowledge further on. What we can give, we give simulated reality to supplement your information you have, your courses, so we can create new value. And naturally, your courses would be available 24/7. So I think that's quite a big plus for anyone that'd be using it. And thus, that's how we connect all these four parts into one big product, into one big platform. And that's what generally Simformer is. So what we have LMS. We can take theory and Simformer business simulation or business simulation environment. You can create with the help of developer tools a very specific starting conditions or scenarios depending on the things you want students to learn. And in the end, there's a marketplace for these products to be sold. So that's the whole thing. And also, if some of you that are not registered for the upcoming game in about 2 hours, so I welcome you to register for the demo to explore the possibilities, and well, I'll be looking forward to work with you. So does anyone have any questions? Regarding the game, I will send all the I would say that, Coursera is not exactly a direct competitor because they don't have the practical skill development thing. Really, what they have theoretical sharing experience, theoretical knowledge, but developing skills, I'm not sure they can do that. In corporate sector, there are a lot of simulations, as I mentioned, but direct competitor, almost none. You can try and choose. Well, there are many simulations overall as a product of business simulations as such, but I couldn't say that they have the size and complexity we do. So specifically that most of them don't really have one essential part, the virtual economy. We do have, they don't. So in this case, it depends how you see. They're close, but not that close. I'd say that our simulation and then virtual economy is the next generation. So. Oh, easily. The Yeah, easily. Actually, there are two type of things that can be done. Well, usually when especially we had this conversation in UniCredit, and naturally the same question. The answer is pretty simple. You can start. You can give your employees certain situations and companies to manage in a long run, so we can develop their both strategical thinking and well, teamwork. But then later on, for testing, or make, let's say they have a test, a certain test, you create a different environment, different simulation, different conditions when they have to compete once again, and they have to manage. Naturally, the level of challenge and difficulty would be higher. But in the process, as they play in a long term, then naturally they develop their skills and they're more familiar with the environment and the possibilities and how big these possibilities can be. So in this case, either it's a long-term training or short-term training and can be used in both cases. As we have over 200 different products, so we can create the different environments and different situations, and we can be changing every, let's say, every month or so, and you can see how, yeah, you can see how it goes. So you see, the thing is, it's really up to you as business trainer to see what kind of things would work better, because different organizations have different challenges and different tasks, right? Some need a little bit more strategical challenging, some need a little bit more analysis or analytical skill development. So it's really up to those things, what kind of things they really need. And thus, as a result, you develop a certain, well, we develop together with you, we develop a certain environment, conditions, tasks for them to manage and compete. So that's exactly how it works. So usually how we do it. So it's as usual. All the thing is, the difference with the other business simulations are that usually these kind of business simulations are focused on one and can be usually used by one company, and naturally they cannot be shared with other companies because that's, well, sort of a losing the competitive edge. But in our case, we have environment that can be used to develop small, different size, small, big, focused, not focused, directly connected or not, or indirectly connected to their business tasks and business games that can be used. So in this case, this is exactly why I call it Simformer business simulation environment, where there's a lot of things can be done and achieved. Yeah, surely. Alexandra, remind me, I think you will be participating in the game later on, yes? Correct me if I'm wrong. No? No. Yes, and I will be sharing this presentation later on, naturally. Okay. Okay, great. So naturally, I will share this presentation. You will have my contacts. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And I will be waiting for all the rest of you in the game to compete. All right? Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.